My brothers and sisters, did Peter stink like fish? Well, maybe not. Maybe he did. Maybe he stank like fish. After all, this was a professional fisherman, spent much of his life out on the sea in that little lake. And I would imagine the smell of his work stuck to him. After all, there wasn't lava soap back then, there wasn't showers you could go back home with. And so my suspicion is indeed, St. Peter spent much of his life smelling like fish. But not only the fish of his daily bread, that is, his workplace, he also stank of the fish of his daily life. That is, his anger, his short temper, his willingness to make big promises and not follow through, his high ideals, and his deep, deep passion. St. Peter, who would betray the Lord with curse words, not unlike, in my opinion, those curse words that Jesus probably heard when he called him from the sea. After all, he's a fisherman. Now, nothing against fishermen, but a professional worker like that probably had a bit of a mouth. That's my guess. It's my guess, take it or leave it. And it's my opinion that it's precisely that smell and that stink of life that drew Jesus to this one. There's an old saying, I've heard it quoted many times on bumper stickers and from pulpits. Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. A beautiful, beautiful expression. Every saint has a past, every sinner a future. Some of the greatest saints in all of the church's history have been men and women who have had failures in their life, moral failures. St. Augustine, child out of wedlock, lived many, many years, bringing great sorrow to his mom, Monica. A wandering man looking for pleasure and for power and for fame. St. Francis of Assisi, who lived for much of his young life according to the motto of wine, women, and song. There's, of course, Mary Magdalene, whom tradition holds earned her keep through a life on the streets. Ignatius of Loyola, who yearned for honor through military combat and through all of the accolades of the world. St. Paul, who was the great persecutor of the church. And then there is, of course, Peter. Peter, who betrays the Lord, who is nowhere to be found when the Lord needs him most. And even after his return to Jesus, even after Pentecost, still must be challenged by Paul because he is afraid of the crowd, as he describes the new dietary laws of the Christian faith. My brothers and sisters, no saint does not have a past. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future for those who cry out to the Lord. What about you? What about me? Maybe as we examine our life, we recognize our own brokenness, our own failures. Maybe you recognize that, you know what? You didn't parent real well. Maybe you look back upon your life and you recognize, I told some terrible lies that made my life more comfortable and brought misery to others. Maybe I violated the trust of a spouse. Maybe I participated in a terrible, terrible sin, contributed to the death of a child, perhaps. My brothers and sisters, we go to these extreme cases because mercy is extreme. Because the love of the Lord reaches deep into our brokenness. It is the Lord himself who is the ultimate fisherman, who does deep sea diving and finds us in our weakness, in our brokenness, in our poverty. My brothers and sisters, the Christian way of life is a way of life of hope. Because we are loved despite our weakness, despite our failures to love and to listen and to act. But we are also people of hope because even in the midst of our weakness, we are still called to be missionaries. It's not only St. Peter who was called to be a fisherman, not only his brother Andrew or James and John, not only these men of the world, not only these men who are the first apostles, the pillar of the church. No. All baptized Christians, every single baptized Christian, regardless of your past, is called to be a missionary. It's a tactic of the devil, a tactic of the enemy to whisper in our ear, no, that's not for you. It's not for you to speak to your sibling about Jesus. It's not for you to be a representative of the faith in your workplace. That's not for you. Just keep your head down, do your best. That's for somebody else. No. You are called to be a missionary. You yourself are called to go out into the sea of your life and to bring Jesus to them and to invite them into this place. Through a life of compassion, through a life of love, through fidelity to prayer, through acknowledgement, I'm not perfect. Newsflash, I'm not perfect, but I am still called to proclaim Jesus Christ in the midst of my weakness. I've been reading some wonderful, very challenging books given to me by parishioners for Christmas. And one in particular has been deeply moving. The kind of priest that the church needs. Very inspiring and very challenging as I stack my life up against the thoughts of this layman about what a priest is called to be. And there are moments of deep anxiety as I read that book. Because that's not me. I'm not like that. I may be called to be like that, but that's not me. And so I remember Peter. I think and I admire John Vianney, but boy, I take so much consolation from St. Peter. St. Peter was like me, so full of wonderful ideas and passionate and weak. So full of deep zeal for the Lord in one's intellect, but in the will, St. Peter, glorious St. Peter, whom Jesus chose. What kind of priest does the church need? What kind of Christians does the church need? Men and women who know that they are forgiven, who know that they are loved, who are called to perfection, but whom the Lord walks with now. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, again I say, maybe the reason why Peter was called was precisely because he stank. Precisely because from that bearded, messy face, curse words were spewing from the seashore. That precisely in the midst of his real humanity, barking orders at his brother, Jesus found him. He found him in his humanness, in his weakness, in his fishiness. And he loved him there. And he chooses this weak instrument to be a messenger of mercy. For the Lord delights. He delights to use the weak to proclaim his strength. That is the mystery of the cross. That is the mystery of discipleship. The work is the Lord's. So do not be afraid. Don't listen to the temptation that your life is meant to be one of mediocrity because the world knows that you are weak. No. Just because your family knows you have made terrible mistakes does not mean that you cannot still be an inspiration. Just because the world knows that you have failed in serious ways, does not mean that you do not have a future, and a future as part of the building up of the kingdom of God. A kingdom made up of smelly people like me and you.